Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Today we will be continuing our discussion or thought on Shri Madhwa's parents and birth as described by Shri C.M. Padmanabhacharya in his book The Life and Teachings of Shri Madhwacharya. So we continue with the recollection that at the time of a festival during the solar equinox, a man climbed up the pillar of Ananteshwara and started saying that the times when a pious devotee of God would be born amongst them to elaborate the right meanings of the Vedas and show the lighted path. We continue. Sriman Madhwa says that the god themselves appealed to Vishnu there who thereupon ordered his Bhakta Vayu to go down as an avatar and accomplish the sacred mission. The belief is not uncommon, not only in India, but in every country boasting of a revealed religion, that it is God and in some mysterious way inspires noble thoughts, words, and deeds, and that God occasionally presents himself in some mortal form to accomplish great ends by descending among men and giving a personal impetus to some mighty undertaking resulting in a great upheaval of society or in some great turn or revolution in the affairs of humanity. Whether the Supreme God and his ministers held a conclave in a meeting hall and passed resolutions with parliamentary decorum or not, it may not admit of doubt to those that believe in the efficacy of prayer that when men cry earnestly for a hero or saint, and a hero or saint does appear in their midst, they naturally take it that God sent him to them with the necessary inspiration to fulfill his will. So the prior to the birth of Madhva, the situation in the southern part of India, or rather in India itself, was quite dismal as the actual teachings that were prevalent at that time did not cohere with the actual thought processes of the sincere and earnest people or earnest people who believed in theism. They they did not want to accept wholeheartedly the teachings which proclaimed the non existence of the world in reality and the fact that there is no difference between jivas and such stuff. So, as a result, most of the good people of the world were praying for a enlightened being to be born so that they can be led on the right path, and such a thing happens or it was about to happen. So all the people who were for it, they were thanking God for listening to their prayers. And what Acharya says here is that it is not just confined to one place, but throughout the world, people do entreat the higher power, the supreme power, for such direction. And when such direction is shown by a new um, person, so that the whole society is reformed, then it is definitely the grace of God who listened to the prayers. He he instills the required inspiration inside the devotee who is born amidst the seekers and charges him to complete and do his will. Mysterious indeed are the ways of providence in choosing the instrument of his great purpose. Of all the learned men, why he chose Madhyageha Bhatta, and of all the places in the world, why he chose Pajaka Kshetra. It is not perhaps given to mortal reason to discover. In choosing places and persons for his or their avatar, God and Devas show no partiality towards title, nobility, and cities of palaces, and no bias against poverty and hamlets. They very often choose the poor and humble, and love to dwell amongst them in the huts of a petty village. Sri Krishna did so, passing the period of his infantile years in rural scenes hidden from publicity, and appearing on the larger theatre in proper time to fulfill his purpose. The ways of providence are really mystic. No one can ever ask the question, why was Madhwa born in Pajaka? Why did he chose Madhyageya as his father? These are the things that no one can answer when it comes to the avatars of God or to the appearance of the Devatas. The school of thinkers who rely on heredity as the only reasonable explanation for every phenomenon of organic evolution will find it hard to account for Sri Madhwa as the natural outcome and product of Madhyageha's brains, added it may be to the feeble intellect of his consort Vedavati. Those who decline to accept anything extraordinary or supernatural, who are skeptical about outbursts of genius, who account for everything and everybody by measure and standards derived from historical precedents, and who deal with history as a science by belittling great men as merely the creatures and products of circumstances and environments, will find it no easy task to trace the evolution of the great religious teachers that have revolutionized Indian philosophical thought. When we come to the scientific viewpoint about the birth of people, their thought point only says that evolution happens through the same lineage, and whatever has been obtained by the progeny is a part of their heritage as a as a part of their birth. So the question that we would like to ask them, says Acharya, is that is Acharya Madhwa a product of Madhyageha's brains or Vedaviti's intellect? This cannot be true because he surpassed them in intellect, in ability, in reach, in the way he could handle the situations, and his own intellectual prowess was directly witnessed by Madhyageha when he started to teach him. So these kind of questions are pointed out by Acharya to tell us that the birth of people and their abilities are not just a product of the heredity, but they also contribute, but their actual and innate nature is definitely contributing not only to the evolutionist and the scientific historian, but to all and sundry. It would be exceedingly interesting, of course, to know all about the personal history of Sri Madhwa's parents and all about their status and occupation, their students and groups of thought, their religious and social world. In short, all about the life they led, so that it may be seen whether the birth and growth of Sri Madhwa's genius could be accounted for from the human standpoint of heredity. I am, however, one of those that believe in great men as being a law unto themselves. I think heroes create circumstances and subdue their surroundings rather than submit to a fashioned and shaped by them. They are no creatures and slaves thereof, but their masters. They make headway not because of, but very often in spite of adventitious causes. So they are making a case for Acharya Madhwa to not be born because of his his compulsion, but because of the choice of Paramatma for him to do this accomplishment of work to show the direction to the good souls in the world. So Sri Madhwa's parents' history or their lineage, what did they study, how did they live, all these things, if we study also, we cannot pinpoint and say, okay, this is the cause that Madhwa was born here. This is the cause that Madhwa could do this. So Sri Madhwa, whatever he did and whatever he showed is not just a product of his circumstances. Circumstances decide how people live. That is what is the theory in the science. Whatever, if you're pushed into a difficult circumstances, you strive hard to come out of it and become stronger. So that is one of the theories which they want to generalize to everyone. But that's not so, is what Acharya CM Padmanabhacharya wants to point out, that circumstances do not limit a great personality like Madhwa. Instead, they always overcome the circumstances, overcome any kind of obstacles, and thrive in that situation where other people would have been having no chance. To resume the thread of the narrative, Madhyageha had every reason to congratulate himself upon his good fortune when the prospect of a son being born to him became evident. He looked back upon the 12 long years he had spent in penance and prayer and shed tears of gratitude that the boon was, after all, well nigh within reach. Once he had looked upon himself as a singularly unfortunate person by reason of the domestic bereavements he had had to suffer. He had changed his residence from Udupi to Pajaka Kshetra, probably for this reason, among others. Three ill luck seemed to be deserting him now, and he felt that he had reason to consider himself quite a happy man. Soon it became evident that Madhyageha was about to father a child, and he was totally elated. He was very much thrilled with this news, and he felt that the Supreme Lord has listened to his prayers, that he was being uplifted from his ill luck towards good fortune, and he was he was feeling much blessed. He was a happy man. If Pajaka Kshetra was at this period the forlorn village that it looks at present, Madhyageha would hardly have chosen it for his abode. No doubt his lands were in the neighborhood, but they were tilled by tenants. It is only under the ages of the Western civilization that solitude is losing all its charms, and that rural life gravitates towards town life for one reason or another, with the inevitable result that villages sink in importance and towns are greatly augmented in size. Our ancestors, however, preferred the seclusion of hamlets in order to pursue the even tenor of their way, far from the madding crowds of ignoble strife. So, Acharya Madhwa's parents were now living in Pajaka Kshetra, even though they were previously the residents of Udupi. So, CM Padmanabhacharya tries to debate why did they move to Pajaka. In present times, when we think about people, most people are moving from the village to the city because they endeavor for the city life. They want all the conveniences of the city life. But in the olden times, people were more for the quiet and serene life of the village where they could do their daily karma, do their spiritual worship without the interference of the madding crowds of the city. But Pajak, so he says that because of the Western influence, this mindset has been ingrained into the people that city life is far better than village life. But Pajaka Kshetra was not, however, an uninhabited jungle. There must have been a few houses in rows or clusters, in the middle of which Madhyageha had his dwelling. His neighbor on the east, Purvalaya, was evidently an obliging and estimable man. He had besides a congenial society of friends and relations whom he entertained by Puranic recitals. Close to this village there was a popular schoolmaster whose toll was attended by numerous pupils. His residence was not far away. A well-known pond known as Dandatirtha still marks the scene of the schoolmaster's labors. Anticipating our story a little, I may mention that Dandatirtha is believed to have been a gift of Shri Madhwa to this village teacher in gratitude for the education he received in his toll. So we see that nearby to Madhyageha's residence there was a school teacher who was educated by who was a part of the process of education. Thank you. Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.